Oh, you were cut off. I'm like, where did Nate go?
I'm off the side of the screen.
Yes.
Yeah, I had us lined up for, well, talk about why we were lined up for more than two of us in a moment.
First, we got to do what we always forget. Welcome to the Off-Road Insiders podcast. I'm Tammy.
It's a tough job, isn't it? Trying to actually follow some semblance of order on a podcast, isn't it? So yeah. Hi, I'm Nate. If no one knew that. I'm working on way too small of a screen at the moment because
you're in the
in
garage.
a hurry to get things set up.
Yeah.
In the garage on just my laptop instead of my nice comfortable desk. But it's all for the show, right?
Yep. So Labor Day weekend was last weekend. I got my Jeep out. Yeah. A bunch of coworkers. We went up to Rob Roy, up in the mountains here in Wyoming. It's a reservoir.
Rob Roy sounds like a movie from the
80s. We were at this lake, and then there was this guy with a knife. No, I'm kidding. We went fishing, and it's so nice to be able to go somewhere, park your tent, park your Jeep, and just hang instead of drive, and go to the next place, camp, get up, put your tent away, drive. So sometimes it's just nice just to go somewhere and camp and just park your vehicle and just chill.
I'll say all the content I've seen about overlanding, it looks fun, don't get me wrong, but it looks like a ton of work.
Yeah.
For just what you described, right? And and you get a better feeling for, like, when you think about it, if you ever set up a campsite, you know that there's
a lot of work.
Yeah. Takes time. Setting up your whatever that goes along with your tent, your sleeping arrangements and whatever, it all takes time. So you can understand why those rooftop tents are so dang popular.
Right. Or it was
sold out.
It was nice when we went wheeling in South Dakota, where you set up in one spot and then you go wheeling from there every day. You go wheel a trail or two, come back, eat, wake up the next morning, go wheel some more trails. So kind of like, AOAA or Rush Creek. So
yeah, I guess, there you'd be camped, in the camp area, and then you just wheel for the days. But it's not quite the adventure, right? You don't have the sense of
you're out in the wilderness.
Yeah, the wilderness, the sense of exploration. That's the word I'm looking for.
Right.
If you're in a closed park, it's like, there's really you don't have the same thing. Yeah. Although maybe that's not what you're looking for. Maybe you just want to camp and wheel. I used to do that every year. Every year we had in fact, it was around Memorial Day weekend. We would always go out to AOAA. There was a campground that was, 20 minutes from the park. We'd camp for a weekend and we'd wheel 2 days, and it was actually a fun trip. But we weren't in the middle of nowhere. We weren't in the wilderness. I'm not an overlander.
It's fun, but
I'm fine
every
with camp, and I'm fine with wheeling. I've never done the two that integrated.
Right. Not every weekend. Sometimes it's nice just to chill. So
yeah, not like those folks who like your like Dan. Was it Dan?
Dan Greck.
That went all around Africa. That's
2 years.
A little more than I think.
2 years of overlanding.
It sounds like a heck of an adventure, but man, I don't know if I could make it. I don't know if I could do it.
He's in Iceland right now, or was. The videos he's sharing his videos now. So
you had mentioned trying to reach out to him to come on the show, but I guess if he's in Iceland, that'd be a good reason.
I think he's back, but I'm not 100% sure. So what did you do while we were on hiatus for?
Let's see. 2 big things, I think, since the last time we recorded. Did I talk about looking for a truck last time we recorded?
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned it in the past.
I'll save that for the last comment because I think it's a good transition, and viewers will
You'll understand. Yes, they'll get it.
But what I did get done is this axle behind me. I shouldn't say done. I got a big piece of it done. If you've ever seen a Super Duty Dana 60, you'll notice that looks, maybe it's hard from that far away. This one is 4 inches narrower than it came from the factory.
Oh.
And I did it myself, which is a first for me, narrowing an axle. I thought, boy, that sounds like a lot of work. Sounds like a lot of precision stuff that I'm going to really have a good chance of screwing up. It wasn't that bad. I mean, it was a lot of work and a lot of like, I'll say anxiety around, am I going to get this thing totally messed up? And you can see, I don't know how well you can see it because we're little. There's a truss sitting on top of it that doesn't fit anymore because I bought the truss before I decided to narrow it. So now I'm trying to decide if I'm selling a Barnes truss or if I'm trying to narrow a Barnes truss. But that'll be a decision for another day. I really want the strength of the truss. And everybody, when they make a truss, they assume it's going to be the full width of the axle. So I don't know. I'm hoping I can narrow it.
Well, I know a place that maybe can help you with that.
Do they make custom Super Duty trusses that'll be 4 inches narrower and still get the springs and everything in the right place? Because that's the key with the truss, right? It's got
I know a guy who maybe can talk
and
to
mounts,
in a little bit.
Mounts for the control arms and stuff.
Yeah, who might be able to. He knows our truss system better than I do.
Yeah. Completely randomly on Facebook Marketplace, I came across somebody that was selling a narrowed Super Duty Dana 60 with a Barnes truss on it. And I could see pictures of what he had done to fit the truss on there. So it seems possible, but I don't know. Anyway, there's a video up on that, on basically the process of welding the tubes and getting the C back on the end of the axle after I cut it off and shortened it. But it'll be linked in the show notes. But if you just go to my YouTube channel, it's my latest video. So next thing is going to be probably either think about the truss or start working on getting the tubes welded on the rear 60, which is over here. You can't see it. But that's already got kind of a truss on it, which looks like it's home fabricated. And it's basically like just 1/4 inch steel that's in a U shape. I'm probably going to cut that off and put a better truss on it. But yeah, so that's where the Dana 60s are sitting at the moment. This is going to be like a several year project at this rate because even after I get the housings exactly as I want them, I still have to get lockers and gears and now a new shaft for the shortened side of this and new shafts for the other one because they're not 35s. Are they 30 spline? I haven't pulled them out and counted them, but I think factory it came 30 splines. I want to put 35s in it before I put it in the Jeep. So yeah,
never ending process.
I need to start playing the lottery is what I need, or I need a rich uncle, or a really really generous benefactor,
right,
or something. Anyway,
money. So you mentioned something about a truck.
Yeah, the other thing was a couple weeks ago. That's why I wondered if we had talked about it on the last show. I think I forgot to mention it. But my wife and I happened to be out, and I mentioned that we're thinking about a new tow rig. I have that Cadillac Escalade I've been using for a couple of years. It's been a little finicky, left me sitting a couple of times, and I'm really frustrated trying to track down this weird stalling problem that it has. And so we thought, let's go see about these legendary Toyota pickup trucks. I had done a lot of reading about the Toyota Tundra and how well it supposedly tows the newer models. And they're supposedly a lot more efficient fuel-wise when you're not towing because they've got a V6 in them instead of a big old V8 with turbo. So I thought, let's go have a look at them. And I did. Looked at a Toyota Tundra. My God, the base level. First of all, I'm surprised. The base level Toyota Tundra will tow over 8,000 pounds. I guess pickups nowadays, even like the smallest thing you can buy, as long as it's a full-size pickup, tow like 10, 11, 12,000 pounds, which is good for me because that means I don't have to go out and buy a 3,500 class pickup truck, which 10 years ago was pretty much what you needed to tow that much. You'd look at base model 1500s and they would tow about 5,000 pounds, which was a joke for a pickup. Anyway, $54,000.
Yikes.
$54,000.
Yep. That's not a lot nowadays.
That's the sad thing. And the really sad thing is the Escalade, which is in decent condition. It's got some dings and dents and the AC doesn't work. I never got the AC fixed. It died on me shortly after I got it. They offered me $2,800 for it.
Oh.
I'm like, are you kidding me? So yeah, apparently old vehicles aren't holding value, but
unless,
new ones.
Right. Unless it's a Jeep, maybe. Jeep Wranglers.
Yeah, right. If you get a Jeep or probably a Tacoma or maybe even an old Bronco. We'll see how the new Broncos hold their value, but the old ones I hear are commanding a pretty high price. But they're like, an old Bronco would be from the 60s, right? I don't know when they stopped making the old Bronco. Anyway.
So since we're talking about Toyotas,
yeah,
we'll just kind of segue right into, we have a guest tonight.
We do.
I'm excited to announce this guest. He's a coworker of mine. He works at TNT Custom. He's like our lead fabricator, welder dude, but he's a Toyota guy.
Why do you say that like it's a bad thing, Tammy?
I know. Well, that's what you're supposed to do, right? That's what I hear.
Because you have Jeep in your name,
right?
You're supposed to look down on the Toyota people.
But anyway, so Jake also is a podcaster, and he has a podcast called The Toyota Garage. And we asked him to come on our podcast because we're the off-road insiders. So we want to get a different view for more than just Jeeps. And
we do need a broader view.
Yeah. And Jake he knows everything about Toyotas. I think he does anyway. But anyway, yes.
Maybe he can get me a deal on a Tundra.
Right. So anyway, Jake is here to
let's bring
chat
Jake
with
in.
us.
Hi, Jake.
How's it going, guys?
Hey.
Good. You. So what do you think about the price of a Toyota Tundra?
Well, you piqued my ears as soon as I heard Tundra. It's been such a rocky road. And this is a conversation we've had. I mean, the last 2 years for Toyota has been insane. With this new platform, it's called the TNG platform, so it's a new whole frame. Toyota's known for a frame issue. I'm trying. This is horse blinders. It's something that we're very passionate about on our show. But the biggest issue that we're seeing with all of this platform is the recall stuff, right? We're seeing a lot of big issues with the motor recalls. You see it in the 20. So the biggest one that you got to watch for is you see it in the 22 and the 23. They're having bearing problems. They're claiming, take it for what it's worth, they're claiming that they're getting a lot of material, air quotes here, left in the crank journals. Some material tearing up the bearings in your crank and kind of preemptively wearing that stuff out. The 24s.
I want to say Jeep had a similar recall on the 3.6s.
Yeah.
Was it the 3.6 or was it one of the other engines that they put in the other more SUV like vehicles? I forget which vehicle it was, but I remember something similar.
That.
Yeah.
Now and with this new platform, so your TNG, this new platform, the 3.6 motor, this twin turbo setup, all of the, I mean, like I said, in the last 3 years, Toyota has hit the reset button on all of their four-wheel drive vehicles. So everything's new. Your motors are new. The platform is new. This is now a coil sprung truck, not a leaf sprung truck.
Yep.
It's a twin turbo truck. This is a electric I-Force truck. Like everything is so new on this truck that we have to iron out kinks. You're not going to buy for example, an 07 JKU. I wouldn't touch it. I don't think any of us here would really honestly touch that vehicle. It's
because they hadn't ironed out the kinks yet. Yeah,
exactly. That motor is trash. Tell me one.
Oh, the 3.8. Yeah,
exactly.
Everybody hated that engine.
Buy that motor, right? You're going to iron out the kinks the first couple of years. The other thing is it's a completely new platform that they really need to figure out. The other thing is nobody wants to touch a brand new vehicle. And what I mean by brand new is this is brand new.
First off the line. Yeah.
Yeah. A complete from the ground up brand new. Is the technology from this new turbo, and not even Toyota, just in general, the technology that you're seeing from forced induction motors nowadays, leaps and bounds from what it used to be. The other part of it, the I-Force Max, this electric motor thing. One thing that Toyota, I will say, does very well, is they're not going to put something into a vehicle that hasn't stood the test of time. And although we make fun of them, even Toyota people make fun of the Toyota Prius, that thing has been running this style setup for decades. And it is a very similar setup. So I can't knock this electric motor setup, and I can't knock a turboed motor from Toyota as well. So what they're putting in the truck is a good platform. It's just, it's different. It is tweaked to fit the Tundra. There's just some things that need to be fixed. All in all, the base of it is the reliability is going to be there for Toyota. There's some kinks that need to be ironed out. They'll be there. So 2024 and beyond, well worth every penny you put into that truck. Now, 50 to 75, depending on the platform that you get, an iForce Max, TRD Pro, or that 1796 Platinum Edition, however far down that rabbit hole you want to go, 75,000, almost 90K, depending on how the trim levels you want to go. That's ridiculous.
Yep.
We've talked about
crazy.
That. It's insane the amount of money
crazy
that
price
we're seeing from that. Yeah, it's crazy.
Now,
we've talked about. Go ahead.
The whole goal here, right? I've done the used vehicle thing for as long as I've been buying vehicles. I think I have owned one, maybe two brand new vehicles my entire life. And usually I don't keep them long because I hate the fact that I owe so much money on them. And I hate the fact that I feel like I can't use them because of depreciation, right? Like I always have that looming over my head, like I owe so much money on this, I can't do anything with it.
Right.
But in this case, the Cadillac that we have now, we use it for family trips and we use it for towing, right? Two things I do not want an unreliable vehicle for, and that's exactly what the Cadillac's been. It's been unreliable. I mean, I can't say it's been the worst vehicle I've ever owned, but it has this like phantom issue that I keep running into that I have tried for the 4 years that I've owned it to get to the bottom of and can't figure out, right?
Well, and the prime example, when you talk Cadillac, what do you think? Cushy, comfortable ride.
Yeah.
Typically, right? You don't think toy hauler. You don't think towing machine. When I grew up, so like quick backstory, side note, there's tangents. Trust me, it's going to happen for the next 5 minutes. I grew up, my first car was an 82 Cadillac Eldorado. Pea yellow, long summer day, didn't drink a lot of water, pea yellow, you know what I mean? And Cadillac, I will give Cadillac the innovation they put into their cars was ahead of their time. Roll down windows in an 82 Cadillac. Wild. Never heard of it before, right? Air conditioning in an 82 Cadillac. Electric seats in an 82 82.
Yep.
I mean, you still had to stand up and turn the dial on the TV in 82.
Right.
Yeah.
I wasn't around in 82. The point being that, like, their innovation was ahead of its time, but electrical issues were still relevant back then. I know there was, towards the end of its life, passenger side window wouldn't roll down. Didn't have a heater or air conditioning. Just that unit didn't work. Stereo never worked. Half the dages, because it was all digital daj readouts. So speedometer, gas, all that was all digital. Half that didn't work. So the Cadillac electrical, I mean, not far from the old Land Rover's electrical issues as well, right? But one thing for Toyota that has stood the test of time is its reliability.
That's exactly why we checked that first. Now,
exactly, right?
We're probably going to compare the Ram, a Chevy Silverado. I don't know if I could bring myself to drive a Ford. I'm just not a Ford guy.
Right.
But
right.
we'll probably check them out. But I get the feeling it's either going to be similar or more of a price point. And nothing against the Chevy or the Ram. Toyota has that legend, right? They'll run forever, right?
Yeah,
and that's the thing that really bothers me, though, is that's exactly what they pushed at the dealership as we were there. She started telling me this story about this guy that had like an 85 Tacoma or whatever, and he brought it back and got 10 grand for it. I'm like, yeah, right. 10
Not
grand
for a dealer,
for
you didn't get 10 grand. Yeah. Marketplace.
That's the story as she told
maybe.
it.
Yeah. He asked 10 grand on Marketplace. Somebody
Right.
bought it. But
Yeah.
and there's other companies, there's other manufacturers. I'm definitely biased. It's in the name. But there are stories. The Million Mile Tundra.
Yeah.
You can look the story up. Old man ran medical supplies, I believe, out in the southern states, South Carolina, Virginia area, in this 2007 Tundra. Put 1 million miles on that thing.
Wow.
Dang. It's a legit story. You can look it up. A lot. Some old black dude. Can't even remember his name, but the point being, legit put 1 million miles on this. Toyota took it, put it in, I want to say it's South Carolina. Put it in the dealership that he bought it from, front display in their dealership. Toyota took the motor, disassembled the motor. Looked like it never ran before. So it's there. The proof is, for lack of better words, in the pudding. There are countless numbers. There's a Tacoma that's gotten 1 million miles. There's a Corolla that's hit the 1 million mile mark. And like I said, there's other companies that have done it. Awesome, cool. I'm focusing on the one that I enjoy, Toyota, right? So the reliability is there. You can't argue with the sales. You can't argue with the vehicles that are still on the road. The Jeep 4-liter, solid motor. You see it in the XJ, you see it in the TJs. It's a solid motor. But when someone says 22RE, you know what that is. And even if you're a Jeep person, or at least you're a motorhead, when someone says 22RE, you typically know what that motor is. That's a Toyota motor, and that thing is bomb-proof and bulletproof. It makes about 20 horsepower, maybe. But sarcastically, but that is a motor that you're going to see in the old school 4Runners, the old Toyota pickups, and it's just such a reliable old motor that came in an 80s vehicle that still guarantee runs today. And that's just a test of how reliable these vehicles are. You throw a little oil in it and change the spark plugs. That's it. You let it run.
Well, the 4L came out of tractors or something, didn't it? Wasn't it based on the 4.2, which was out of a tractor?
Right. If you base something out of farm implements, it usually is going to last a lot longer.
Yeah.
I mean, Briggs & Stratton can't do it right if it doesn't come off a mower. Like, you know what I mean? I've got a lawnmower. I've never changed the oil. It runs better than anything else I have. You know what I mean? So, and that's kind of the ongoing joke for any Toyota. That's why we don't have horsepower, because you can't have enough horsepower to break anything. That's why we got to double down on the transmission or the.
That's the way to do it, right? Like no horsepower. It's all in the gear reduction. It's harder to break.
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, the moral of it all is the reliability. That's what we stand on, and that's clearly sales wise, a hell of a marketing scheme. Yeah.
Well, we'll see how it all pans out. Hopefully, in the October timeframe, we're going to be looking to actually buy. So we'll see how it pans out. But they were, man, that's a lot of
pricey.
Money.
But I think all new vehicles are up that high.
Yeah, we may end up having to fall back to the slightly used market. But hearing what you just told me about the slightly used newish model Tundras, maybe we want to avoid the slightly used Tundra market.
Yeah, I would be careful on 22 for now. And that's the other thing that Toyota has been talking about is 22, 23, they can't get the recalls yet. There's a lot of trucks that came out. They're trying to get all the replacement parts to start all these recalls. I mean, especially in a market like this now, it's hard to get a ton of material back up and running for all this recalls, so they're not actually taking any trade-ins on 22, 23 right now.
Oh.
So there is some backlash
on
that. I understand where Toyota's coming from, but I also understand if I was a 22 owner of a Tundra, I'd be a little upset. But Toyota's never done their customers wrong. And the best story I ever have for anyone who is on the fence or just bought a brand new Tundra and is a little upset, when I bought my black truck, the one I've been working on and building up, I bought that thing in, probably 17. Bought the truck in 17. It's an '09, and they had a recall on frames. Big surprise, Toyota. Massive recall on the frames of all of these second gen Tacomas. Rust issues and a paint issue. I want to say it was a 25 or 30 billion-dollar recall. Massive recall.
My gosh.
If your frame qualified for a rust issue, full replacement, no questions asked. Toyota, and it was a 10-year after purchase. So my truck being an 09, 19 was the cutoff for that truck. Couldn't get the recall afterwards. I got a letter in the mail in 18 said, do you want to check and it was a frame inspection for my truck in 18, said we would like to inspect your truck for frame damage. And if so forth that there was enough rust and enough damage to the frame, we'll replace it. This is 11 years after the truck has been purchased. They're still willing to replace the frame. So the point being that even with that, Toyota still is going to take care of these Tundra guys. My opinion, I'll say that Toyota's never done their recalls wrong. They've never done their customers wrong. So anyone with the 22, 23, give it a couple years, let them get all their ducks in a row,
figure everything out.
Exactly, and maybe you can.
But maybe don't buy one used.
Not right now. Not right now. But in a couple.
All right, years, so we've gone down the Toyota Tundra rabbit hole almost half the show already.
Told you. That's
how about we reset here?
Hours long.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
Fine.
So we kind of covered who you are. You work with Tammy at
Yep.
TNT, so that's awesome. You want to talk a little bit about what you do at TNT?
So yeah, I mean, I guess untitled lead fabricator. I pretty much run the shop over there, organize the guys from the press brake, our other welder, essentially just line everybody out on getting orders out the door. Best way, short and sweet to explain it. I've been with the company 4 years now, almost 4.5 years. But I do most of the TIG work. We have another guy with us that does most of the MIG work, and then another press brake operator as well. But pretty much came into the company the height of COVID in 2020. Everybody was still kind of spending some money, so we were fairly busy. And it was just the owner's son at that point. Just
had all
one
that,
guy.
All that stimulus money to spend, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, we were putting it back into the economy, which why not? Off-roading. You got to spend that gas money somewhere. It's electrical for all the welding you're going to have to do later on the Jeep.
I replaced the floors in my kitchen. I'm really glad they sent me that money.
I bought diapers, probably a bit. I guarantee
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure that's what
I paid off my Jeep. Woo woo.
Yes,
there you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
pay off your debt.
Yeah, I don't know what I paid. I feel like it fell into the ether somewhere.
Yeah,
I'm not sure where it really went. But yeah, so I mainly just kind of run the fab shop, manufacturing technically, over there, and we turn and burn. We just continue to try to pump parts out and get people their parts as quick as humanly possible. Short and sweet way to put it, really.
And that's what the customs is all about, because every part is made. You guys touch every single part we ship out.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a lot of it is mainly now we're into a manufacturing mode, right? The TNT custom, the TNT part of it, like, catching, if you guys listen to the episode with Tanner, right? The this and that part, he explained where the company came from and how it came. Now we've gotten into the mindset of we need multiple parts, an assembly line type machine is the best way to put it, right? Get as much as we can on the shelf that people can get their parts as soon as possible. When I was hired on, we had, some, in every shop, the best way to explain it, in every shop, there are lead times. It's just the way it is in fabrication shops, in manufacturing shops.
Well, it takes time to churn out those parts. Yeah,
exactly. No one's Amazon. Amazon had really kind of diluted the mindset of the daily
that's
customer.
because Amazon is willing to put the money up front because they know they're going to sell it.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
If something sits on their shelves for a week, it's probably long.
Yeah, exactly. But they have the overhead to cover that kind of stuff.
Right. Exactly.
And it's
They've got the cash flow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a dangerous game to play. Do you put thousands of dollars into a part that may or may not sell, and then you sit on that?
Yeah.
It's a very, and the numbers part is not my game. We just try to focus on what we can get that's selling a lot, and or that we assume is going to, to kind of take off. There is a trend in the shop that we see that if one part sells, guaranteed 3 are going to sell within the next month. It's a weird. All of us, you can ask the owner, you can ask Tanner. You see it that say an XJ inner fender panel. We sell one. I guarantee you in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we sell 2 more. It's just how it is. You sell a scrambler corner. How many scramblers are running around?
Oh, yeah. Remember that one time?
Handful.
Yeah, we sold like 5 or 6 of them.
In a row.
Yeah, it was bizarre.
It's the weirdest thing how it works.
Yeah.
So
that's because the guy that bought the first one is in a scrambler club, and everybody needed the same panel.
Exactly.
He's like, go to them.
Oh, you guys make sliders? I didn't know that. I'll buy some. I will too. And then you'll go a year with nobody buying them, and then 2 more sets come up.
Then you have they're collecting dust on the shelf because you're like, everyone's buying these. I better make an extra.
They'll come back. Yeah. But that's pretty much the way it is. Is you'll get that hit or miss, but there are some consistent parts that do fly off the shelf. You can't keep them there. Our steering box stretch kits for the TJ, one that we can barely keep on the shelf. People are buying that at least once a week. That box is going out the door,
Nice.
which makes sense. It's such a useful part for the front end of those TJs and LJs to clock that steering box, stretch that steering box. It's a useful part, right? The inner fender panels for the XJs seem to be a hot one, but that's also a vehicle that the forerunner in our realm, we call trying to not use the word to demonetize you guys here, but it's a box.
Right.
You guys use the word, but the XJ is a very similar platform.
Right.
It's a box.
We all admit it. Yeah, we all admit it.
But the point being that the XJ has been used and abused, and there's not a lot of those around anymore. The last production run was 01 was the last time you've seen an XJ.
Yep.
So you're getting few and far between on XJs, but inner fender panels are something that we sell a lot of on the XJ. Something that will run for a minute for a lot of the time, or heavy and then die off. And then it'll run heavy for a while and die off.
For a while there, the whole industry was just like, build some axles and a drivetrain and put them under an XJ. And then when you destroy the XJ, just scrap the XJ and save the drivetrain and put it under the next one.
Yeah, pull that little part off and then put a new little part back
pull
on.
Off the unibody, put on a new one.
Yep, put on that new unibody. That's why we built them, right? Huh?
Yeah.
But no, I mean that's pretty much the way we think of it. Is it's going back to kind of what Tammy said. Yeah, that is the custom side of it, but now we are really trying to focus on the manufacturing and filling shelves, and trying to get back to get out of this rabbit hole here for a sec. Is the lead time part. Trying to minimize that lead time. I mean, in a perfect world, I would love people's orders to go out same day. Realistic, someday maybe. If we can organize well enough, right?
I mean, it's the same old supply and demand problem that most businesses have. You ever try to run like a t-shirt business? You have 28 different styles of t-shirt. Which ones do you keep in stock?
Right.
And which ones do you print on demand? Right.
Exactly.
And the one that comes in
do you get 28? Like, do you get 40 of that t-shirt and then 6 of them sell? The rest of them sit on your shelf and you wasted that money? Yep. Same deal, right? Except you're dealing with parts that take, I don't know, I'm just guesstimating. Some of those parts could take a couple of hours to maybe even a day to build.
Oh, yeah.
And then they just sit on the shelf.
Space is another one that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
and the time that you touch it, the time that you work on it, and the time that you have to remove it or move it somewhere else because now it's taking up too much space.
Exactly. And then and they're all I'm sure none of them are just easy to stack on a shelf, right? They're like these weird shapes and whatever.
Yeah, exactly,
bumpers
right,
and corners
right.
and
Yeah.
So that's kind of the goal, is to minimize the lead times. I mean, in a perfect world, yeah, I'd love them to go out the same day, but we're trying to knock it down to a couple days, a week would be amazing to see. If you order a TJ bumper, that could go out in the next couple days. That's kind of the goal, right? That's where I've come in on a personal level. I mean, I know the owners want to see quick returns. They make money, we all make money, but as a personal goal, that's kind of where I want to be, is how quick can we get these parts out. Some are very intricate, like you just said. There's some parts that you just can't get done in a day because they're very tricky, or there's a lot of parts that come together, from the brake work to like our dual triangulated kit. There are 15 to 16 different parts that need to be put together, from our cross members to our side plates. So your front suspension parts, your rear suspension parts, your truss parts, your belly pans, arms, all of the components to put together. You can't do all that in one day. So there are multiple parts that go into this big kit. The efficiency of trying to knock out multiple parts in an assembly line type situation is definitely helpful in the manufacturing side of it. So getting that mindset, getting the guys in online with that too, of, okay, you've got 16 different parts, they all go together, move on to the next one. Like, hammer this out, put that away, hammer out all these, put that away. It helps get us to stocking, but then you also have the individual orders. So it is a really hard balancing act to getting everybody on board, getting orders finished, but also filling shelves and managing essentially everybody in that shop to kind of work together. But we're working. I mean, we're running. I mean, it seems to be working. We got a good crew, working there, and we're just kind of doing what we need to do. And I can't complain, honestly.
Sounds like good work.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, as long as you enjoy it. Right?
Great.
Yeah,
great
absolutely.
Group of guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on your side hustle, I guess you'd call it, I was like, when I first got there, I don't know how long it took before I realized you did a podcast too. I can't remember. And I'm like, oh, wow. So tell us about your podcast and how that came about and all that kind of stuff.
So Toyota, I mean, clearly the first 5 seconds of the show, right? We started talking about Toyotas, and if you wouldn't have pulled the reins back, I wouldn't have stopped.
You seem a little passionate about that brand.
You say passionate, I say mildtism, right?
Right.
Everybody got a little bit of it. Like, and it is passionate. But it stemmed from when you're at a campfire and a couple beers in, you and some friends enjoy what you're doing. The Jeep conversation is just like the Toyota one.
Mm-hmm.
We all enjoy this conversation of whether it's delete the body and just keep the frame and what you're doing out there. The tent's the same. The obstacle's the same. The suspension's a little bit different, but the main concept of getting out there and camping, wheeling, or enjoying that, campfire conversation with your friends is all the same.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was, every time me and my buddy Riley would go out wheeling, we would find ourselves around the campfire until 2 a.m. talking Toyotas. Whether it was motors, whether it was tires. Oh, it's dangerous. Don't get it started. Like, that's really, tires is what started everything. We talk hours for tires. And the wives both were kind of just like,
we're going to bed. Good night.
We're going to bed.
Yes. Speaking of explicit content, there were nights, and I'm not kidding you, she can confirm it. There were nights where they told us to F off, go away from the fire. We don't want to hear you guys talk. And it was more sarcastic than it was anything else. Just like, you got to stop. No, I don't want to hear about Toyotas. We drove up the mountain in them. I don't want to hear you talk about them. Go away. But honestly, the night to this day remember it. We ended up camping in February, did like a winter run, just outside of like Fort Collins, Colorado, just up in the mountains. And it was another one of those late, just got to talk until 2 a.m. Everyone's around the campfire. And one of the guys looks over and he's like, why don't you guys
do a
start
podcast?
like a podcast? Yeah, you guys always talk. Like, it got to be that Riley and I would always talk about Toyotas, and it would get to this passionate, we get not even heated, just excited about it and stoked. And so it started in the garage. Legit, we were recording in the garage around a little camp table. We stick the phone in the middle, and episode 1 is the title holds true. Too many beers deep. Didn't edit, didn't record. We thought, you know what? Bloop. Let's see what happens. And it kind of just took off from there.
What year was that? What year was that?
That was 21. I'd have to look at the first episode. I think we've been running for let's turn down the volume, make sure I don't blow anything up here. I believe our first episode was like March of 21.
Mm-hmm.
So we have been
and you guys weekly?
Yep. So we do weekly. Which there's days where we have some rad guests and some cool people on. There's days where we get in and have absolutely no idea. It's like, we can BS people for an hour. Right. And 3 hours later, we're like, we should probably cap this off. I'm not sure what we even talked about for 2 hours, 3 hours later, you know.
Do you find the viewers like those episodes, or do you not get a lot of?
Yeah, most of our friends at this point, I don't even say listeners, friends. Most of our listeners they just enjoy the BS. You know, it's more of the comedic value. There are lots of people out there that enjoy the tech talk. I've had some long conversations with guys who are like, your spring rate conversations. Like, I want to do the same thing. I just bought a set of Bilsteins. How do I want to set up the same spring rates that you just did? What am I doing? I'm like, okay, well, let's, this is the spring. This is the rate I'm doing. To make sure you're checking this diameter or OD, right? I put it on this spring perch. All right, cool. I've done some work on the black truck, a little bit of work. And there's a lot of guys that are asking about the back section. So 12-inch shocks, spring under, she boogies a little bit on the back. And same thing, you know, I'll have some guys really ask some good suspension questions. But then again, we'll have episodes where there's some inappropriate jokes. And I have guys laughing the entire episode. And they're like, bro, I can't stop laughing. You two are ridiculous. So it's that give and take, right? There'll be tech talks where I get, and really it's newer listeners, or at least newer off-road people that are very intrigued. You know, that are really like, I'll sit down and have 20-minute conversations with them. Or I've got buddies that are like, dude, you burned our friend Wyatt for 2 hours and I almost peed myself. Mm-hmm. I want to meet his mom now. You know, something like that where we'll go off the handles and there's no one there to pull us back, you know, and we won't stop. But it's more of just, it depends on the day. And that's what's kind of nice about not having a format with our show, is it's just kind of free flowing. You know, we don't run ads. We don't have sponsors, you know, and it's not like I don't want to conform to anyone or nothing like that. It's just, I want to be able to show up on a Wednesday night
and just talk.
Do what you want to do.
Just BS. Yeah.
You
know, and the slogan when we first started was, you know, masters of nothing powered by it was powered by BS. You know, that was the motivation, was we would just BS at night at the campground or the campfire. You know, that was just how it worked. We just run with it. And so I didn't want it to feel like a job. That's what the big one was, is when we get in here, I didn't want to feel like, okay, we have to talk about Toyota news. I have to talk about this, and we have to talk about this. Oh, we got to stop. Hey, Got to thank this sponsor and we got to thank this sponsor. Like, just want to have fun. And if we make someone laugh, or at least someone
educate
right.
someone. Yeah,
one person. That's all that really matters.
Yeah,
and that's where
Tammy,
it stemmed from.
I think what I'm hearing here is that we need to get a couple more co-hosts so we can have a good, lively conversation, and then we never have to plan a show ever again.
Right.
Yep.
Right. and how many are on your show? Like,
it's just Riley and I. That's
and
it.
then you but you bring in interviews and
we'll bring in people. So no hard flex, not trying to brag by any means, but some of the bigger names that have really I don't want to say motivated, but it boosted the show for us numbers wise. Junior over at Bilstein was a huge one for us. That one is really kind of pumped up the suspension conversation with a lot of individual listeners. He's motivated a lot of kids to build similar setups like us, just because we were able to answer some questions and get direct information from Junior over at Bilstein. We are very fortunate to have been over at Blue Ribbon Coalition open our eyes on how crazy,
that was huge.
Yeah, how crazy this situation is.
And we followed up when you told me about that at the shop. That was our next episode. We did the same thing, just about the whole talking about land closures, public land closures here in the West.
It's wild. They're fighting it, and they're still fighting it now, which is something to follow up on. It continues, right? It is a shame that the podcast happened. It's like fight, and then it kind of fades, and that's all media. That's how everything happens, right?
That's the way so many things go, though.
That's just social media. It's just how it is. Yeah.
You get a crowd motivated,
yep.
And I don't know. There's probably a number that goes along with this, but some percentage of them stay motivated, and the rest just go back to their lives as normal.
Right.
And that percentage is small.
Media.
Yeah.
It burns
it's
fast,
we have to fight the injustice, and then everybody goes to bed that night. They wake up the next morning, they go back to work, and forget all about it.
Oh, dude, you know what? I could really go for a cheeseburger and a beer right now.
Yeah. I've seen so many causes come and go. Whether it's in the realm of the career that I work in, or in the Jeep world, or the off-road world, or whatever, and you hear it's just like, oh yeah, look at all this outrage. Something's going to change, and it doesn't, because there's not enough people.
No.
Yeah, there's just not enough people that stay motivated. You get the passionate few that stay, and they make a difference, but not the big impact that the crowd could have if they had all just stayed on board.
Right. I'm hoping something like this does, with how the industry has changed, and how social media has changed, and Ben and those guys over there are making a big impact. I'm hoping that does help and they stay with it. We try to repost and do the best that we can to help. We're small numbers when it comes to social media on just the Toyota Garage podcast page. But any little bit helps, right? Mm-hmm. So that one there was a lot of big influence on that, of just like, wow, it's eye-opening, things like that. But a lot of it, because I'm a fabricator, Riley also enjoys, so he's a mechanic by trade, but we both enjoy the fabrication side of it, building the vehicles up and trying to further, how do I want to put it, the builds, but personal build. Riley calls it sweat equity, is a good way to put it, right? We're not having shops build our trucks. We're doing it ourselves. So having fabricators come into our shows is really cool to motivate us and just motivate others to do their builds, to do our builds. So it is cool to have, big names, big companies. There's a list of people we'd love to have on the show that are big time names, but it is cool to have these low key fabricators or small shops come in and just talk about their experiences, how they've gotten their shop started. And a lot of it comes into, well, I didn't like the way things were being built, so I started it my way. Very similar how TNT got started back in the day.
I was just going to say that's how Bob started.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of why I have this workshop I'm sitting in, because there were, and I can't say I'm dissatisfied with the industry, right? There's lots of really good companies out there making really good parts, but goddamn, they're expensive.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And
exactly.
I've always been if I can do it myself, then I can do it and have fun doing it, right? Because everyone's
And
like,
you
oh,
learn.
your time's worth something. Well, yeah, but if I'm enjoying it, then it's not just my time, it's entertainment value. Yeah.
My time
Sometimes I get into a project where I'm like, God damn it, I should have paid someone to do this, but usually I have fun.
Right. I regret every minute of this, but the end result, the end result's way better. But I mean, it is hard to, quantify my time, my labor person projects.
Yeah.
I always say it's a tax write-off. I'll deal with that later. You know what I mean? But we are in that era too of the DIYer. The YouTube style stuff where the information is readily available. There's a lot of companies. I mean, we're part of them. That there's a lot of DIY parts that we can give you that you got to do it yourself. Especially in the suspension side of things, you can't just bolt on a lower control arm mount. That does clearly behind you.
Right.
That's a prime example. You can't just bolt that stuff on. So there's a lot of fabrication that goes into a ton of the suspension parts.
That's a perfect example of what you're just describing, right? If you'd asked me a year ago if I was going to be able to narrow an axle in my garage, I'd told you were crazy. But through the stuff I do with YouTube and all the content I've consumed, I've seen other guys with shops not too different than mine do that job.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's like, well, they did it. They didn't do anything that I don't think I could do. Maybe I can do that. And sure enough, here we are.
Yeah. I mean, besides ruining the axle or whatever the scenario, the axle's there, it's a relevant story. Besides completely destroying a Dana 60, what's the worst that's going to happen, right?
Oh, yeah. And to be honest, I was surprised at how inexpensive a Super Duty 60 was. Now, inexpensive is relative, obviously. It was like $400 I think I spent on it, which is not pocket change. Don't get me wrong.
Nobody wants to cut off all the radius arm stuff.
But it wasn't $4,000, right?
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and if it takes me a couple hours a day to cut off all the mounts versus spending the $15,000 to $2,000 for a, let's say, 04 leaf sprung Dana 60, where all I got to do is cut off a leaf perch, right? Versus cutting off the other. I mean, it depends. The question always comes back is what's your time worth? You know, in the long run,
taking the radius arms off of this thing was a freaking nightmare.
It was, yeah.
Right. That's another one. We're getting into the project. You're like, this doesn't look that bad. Then you start doing it. You're like, oh my God, this is terrible.
This is bad. But I'm done. It's done. Now I can.
It's done now. It looks like a bare housing now.
Yeah.
But it's your hobby,
Exactly. I came down here a couple hours a night and knocked off this, knocked off that, plasma cut this, ground away at that. And, when I got sick of it for the night, I'd go upstairs and play some video games or go hang out with the kids or, drink a beer.
I can't sit there an entire weekend and play a video game or sit on the couch and I got to do something.
Yeah, I probably could, which is I have to motivate myself not to.
I don't know. Like, it's one of those, maybe it's just get that itchiness, right? Like
I know the feeling.
There's something to be done. What can I do?
If I sit,
I always have to be doing something.
Yeah, right.
If I sit for long enough, even if it's basically as long as my brain's engaged, I can sit and do a thing for a long time. But eventually, I don't know what it is, but you get that nag in the back of your head. It's like you should really mow that lawn. You should really, fix that fence that you've been meaning to fix. You should whatever, right?
The only time where I can sit and just like do nothing is when I'm camping and sitting around a campfire. I'm okay with just sitting and vegging. Other than that, I feel like I always have to be doing something productive.
I think it's kind of like when you're on vacation, right? When you're on vacation, you're okay with sitting at the beach staring at the ocean because you've told yourself you can.
Right.
That's what I'm here for. Isn't that the term, vacation? Chill out?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Wait a minute. Did I?
What is
when
that?
when I get
Right.
back, though,
I've
I gotta
got
do
all this
and I gotta
stuff to do.
Exactly. You can't chill out. Yeah, that's the problem. Or you think of a different project that, man, when I get home, I could throw a roll cage in that truck. What if I back half it? What if I start? I might be able to do this. Yeah, and then it doesn't stop. That's the rabbit hole.
I have had so many crazy ideas about what I'm going to do when I put these axles under the LJ. I have an LJ, by the way. I don't know if you knew that, Jake. I have a 05.
I think I caught it on a couple of the episodes. You got the LJ, yeah.
But it needs a cage. If I'm going to have 60s under it, it's going to have a cage because I'm going to do crazy stuff I'm not supposed to be doing in it. Yep, so it's going to need a cage. Yep. And I'm like, if I'm doing a cage, boy, I could like boat side it. I could back half. I could.
Yeah, if you give a mouse a cookie,
gotta stop. Gotta stop somewhere.
Nope. That's no build is ever done. No build is
it'll never be done.
Nope,
it'll never be done. But yeah, I have a lot of ideas. At the very minimum, I'm going to build some fenders for it so I can get larger tires without contacting the fenders. Once I have the 60s under it, I'll be able to do larger tires, right?
Right.
But I don't want it ridiculous tall, so I thought, well, I'll make some fenders. If I'm doing fenders, maybe I'll raise the body some too. No, if I'm going to raise the body, I should probably do a motor mount lift. If I'm going to do a motor mount lift, I could do a flat belly.
And then it's 3 a.m. and you've got 17 different web browser pages open. You're like, I should probably go to bed at this point.
Yeah.
Well, the sun's coming up, so should I just, red eye it and keep going?
Right.
Should I just stay awake or go to bed?
Yeah, just keep going. Keep going. Yeah. So you got 6 loans out, you mortgaged your house, you're thinking,
your wife's gonna kill you.
No, that is one lesson I learned a long time ago. If I don't have cash for it, I don't do it, which is another reason this project is taking a long time.
Yep, don't do it.
I do have another question for you, Jake. There's this whole where Toyota people make fun of Jeep people and Jeep people make fun of Toyota people.
But we all make fun of Broncos.
Yeah, there you go.
No, it's the what is it? The that Honda Ridgeline. We all make fun. We all hate the Honda Ridgeline.
Yes. Yeah.
But for you guys, it's all in fun, and I take it like it doesn't hurt my feelings when people make fun of Jeeps or say that. But are you guys? It's the same thing where you're not. It's just all in fun, or do you seriously not like Jeeps?
When I was in high school. When I was in high school in the 90s, I was into video games and computers. I have taken all of the ridicule all of my life. No one can make me feel bad.
So if you were a video gamer in the video game crowd, if you were in a lobby in any one of these Call of Duty, Battlefield, you have to have a thick skin because you've been called things that probably are not allowed to be said in today's society.
Yeah.
Yes. But and with that note being this PC world, if you're getting offended, this is my take. If you're getting offended for what a Jeep person says or a Toyota person says, and you're taking that, then it's on you, bud.
Right.
And if you're that person, if you're the guy that's coming out complaining or throwing shade, whatever it is, if you're the guy that's out there hating on a Toyota because he's out here wheeling, then it says more about you than it says about that Toyota guy. And vice versa. If you're the Toyota guy out here hating on a Jeep, it says more about you than it says about that Jeep guy. I work in a Jeep shop. Do you think imagine the thick skin back there?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta have thick skin. It's just the way the world is. Trying not to get political with it, but I mean, and just the way that it is, like there'll be differences. I mean, there is feuds between 4Runner guys and Tacoma guys, let alone Jeep guys versus Toyota guys. I've got my fires, I've got my quick responses. Jeep guys got theirs, right? They can joke that mine is a foreign car, sure, at least. Mine's not owned by Stellantis, Fiat,
Chrysler.
Whoever you guys owns Chrysler. Whoever owns them anymore, right? Mine was a plot by Japan for Hiroshima. I mean, the jokes can go on and on, right? Take back the U.S. because of the atrocities of Nagasaki, like whatever the jokes are. the point is, it's a joke. That's all it is. If you're gonna get offended, then I don't think this is the sport for you. Maybe that's the best takeaway from it.
I think, and again, I note that you said try not to get political. It's hard not to in today's age.
Seriously,
but
I know, seriously.
I really think that in the past decade or so, it's gotten really popular to pick a side and dig your heels in as deep as you can. And whether that's politics or auto manufacturers or whatever, right? And if you don't agree with me, like, we can't disagree. You're my enemy, right?
Yeah.
And I really hate the way that's gone. You know, like over the years, I've had lots of friends that I disagree with. I used to carpool with a guy that we were on exact polar opposites of the political spectrum. But I worked one cubicle over from the guy, and we carpooled to work every day because we live in towns next to each other, and we had an hour commute. We had some conversations that today might come to blows, but he and I were able to get in that car as friends and get back out as friends, right? Because we understand that people have different viewpoints. And that's, you know, that's the approach I take to the off-road world as well. I used to guide for a guy who does local off-road trail guides here, or trail rides. He does a monthly guided ride. And people show up, granted, majority of them are Jeeps. I'm driving a Jeep, but they were mixed groups. I had a guy with a Toyota Tacoma. I had a guy show up in a Mercedes. Was it a Mercedes? Yeah, Mercedes. Was it? No, it's not Mercedes.
Lexus.
Yep. Yeah. Toyota. The Lexus version of the Toyota. Lexus, yeah.
Like it's same.
And like, I'm looking at the thing, I'm like, this thing isn't built to be out here. And then sure enough, he wheeled it, and
you'd be surprised.
Whatever. Yeah. It's like he did a good job with the thing. We had someone come to the Jeep Jamboree this year in a Renegade. Yeah. I think she has like an 1.5 inch lift on it because that's the most she could find, right? And granted, she was on green trails, but you know what? She got the lifestyle. She understood. She drives a Renegade because she lives in New York City and she can't justify a Wrangler.
Yeah.
It's like, whatever. You're out here enjoying the sport. Welcome.
Yeah.
Have a good one. You know, have a good time. I'm here to help.
Yeah. I mean, we did our most recent event that I went to was the Bighorn crawl up in Sheridan, you know, on the northern side of Wyoming. And it's a very Jeep heavy based event. And we, as TNT, was the sponsor. And I roll up in
Toyota. Yeah.
And everyone there, I mean, they knew who we were as TNT. We're super stoked to see us as a company. But there's a lot of guys who are like, what you doing with that? I'm like,
what's this Toyota guy doing here?
Yeah. And not in a cocky way. I mean, you know, I still had the old TNT on, so I'm like, I'm here to sell you Jeep parts while I drive this Tacoma up the face of this rock. Watch me. And it wasn't in a cocky way. It was just like, we're just passionate people. I grew up that's my rig. I love Toyotas, but I also love being out here wheeling. And I can sit here and explain to you why your Jeep has death wobble and a brand new JL with rock crawler joints on it. But I can explain to you this and understand.
Shots fired.
Shots fired. I'm sorry. It did. I'm just saying. It had that suspension on it. She said it was death wobbling. And I was explaining why the caster was wrong. That's no shots fired. Just the way the suspension was set up with what arms are on it, it was wrong. And would explain to her what was going on. So there's still enough knowledge about the Jeep to explain to her, even though I'm driving a Toyota. But there was still
like you were saying before, the general, like the sport, the mechanical aspect, the geometry of suspensions, all of that.
Yeah, take the body off. It's the same thing.
Like it's, if not the same, really similar, you know? There's a channel I watch. We had him on the show, Dirt Lifestyle. He has built so many different rigs that every one he builds, if you take the body off, you could tell like all the principles are the same underneath.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you got IFS versus solid axle. Yeah, that debate goes to the test of time. Coils, leaf sprung. It's the same thing. That rock doesn't care what you are.
Yeah.
That mud puddle don't care. You got four-wheel drive and a tire. That's it. Like, and the camping aspect, like everybody can't wait to get back and crack that beer in front of a campfire and talk stories.
Yeah.
That's why podcasts are so popular now. Everybody just likes telling stories.
Mm-hmm.
Some enjoy true crime and killing stories way more than others.
Yeah.
My unhealthy addiction to docuseries on Netflix. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
a lot of women like that. I don't get it.
It's huge. Like that demographic is huge. The off-roading podcast is male-based. Our algorithm shows it. Male is like 90% of the people listening to our show is male-based. True crime is very female-based.
I don't get that one.
Sure, and then they go run in the park and wonder
it's
funny.
I was just checking. I was just checking my YouTube analytics earlier today, and exactly that. I'm like 3% female, 97% male. How is yours, Tammy?
I was going to say mine
is yours the other?
Mine's the same.
Wow, okay.
It's very high.
I didn't know if you'd have more women tuning in because they
can
relate better or whatever.
It's just the genre. I mean,
right?
Yeah,
it's the off-road genre, right? There's plenty of women in it.
Oh yeah,
but it's the ratio, right? There's a lot more dudes that are on the off-road. I would like to see true crime podcasters, analytics. I guarantee it is 95 plus women. My wife, obsessed with true crime. And speaking of, but there are shows.
Is she holding a knife?
Yeah.
You talking about me? No. Yeah, I'm talking about you. There's evidence being recorded. But no, there's episodes we'd be listening to in the truck where I'm like, what are we listening? What is this?
Right.
Did they just shove what I think they just shoved in spots that they shoved it in? She's like, yeah, isn't that crazy? Yeah.
Why are you
listening
that's crazy.
To this? You're not getting any ideas, are you?
No, she doesn't. She just has night terrors, and I wonder why. Babe, come on. I mean, yeah, I'm wondering why I have CVs that blow up in my nightmares and rolling over my vehicle because I want to go try this big obstacle that I've been dreaming about. Yeah, and then you wonder why John Wayne Gacy chases you. I understand it, but
in clown makeup.
Yeah, in clown makeup. Yeah, I mean, it's just, but it is funny just to see the difference in it, right? The demographic, but rabbit hole. I'm telling you,
I know.
Go on for hours, guys.
Yeah, Nate and I do that sometimes too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sometimes the conversation starts to flow. We are we're over by 10 minutes?
Yeah,
I'm telling you, it would go on. You don't stop me. We'll keep going. We'll keep going. Yeah.
Mary, we're gonna be late for work tomorrow. We're still recording.
Recording until 2 in the morning.
Recording a podcast all night. Yeah.
And we were talking about TNT the whole time. I swear.
It's been a pretty common thread throughout the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was G parts.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. Peppered in. Yeah.
Right. We peppered in Jeep parts.
TNT does more than Jeep parts, don't they? Or is it just the primary business? I thought on your website you had stuff that was non-Jeep.
So we also have an auto repair shop. That's where my office is. And we just do regular auto repair. We do truck accessories, bed liners. But as far as the manufacturing part where Jake works, it's Jeep parts, except for we have Power Wagon sliders.
I'm going to call you on that. I'm Wagon.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Power Wagon. Jake and Alex. Yeah, Alex. He's one of our other fabricators. He makes fun of me every time I say that short A.
That's where that thick skin
comes
in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
The guys, the mechanics or the technicians, Daniel and Nick. Everybody gives me crap. It's constantly
Midwestern, that
Wagon
accent, man.
Yeah.
Almost Canadian, eh?
Yeah.
No, but we dabble in the Power Wagons. We had a big demand from a couple guys. We do have that as a website, something we do build. We've kind of played around with the Bronco. not fully. I don't even know if that's on the website. I don't even know if there's photos of that. We've done some sliders. But bread and butter is Jeep. We do have some ZJ, WJ, XJ stuff. But TJ, LJ, JK, JL.
I mean, I'd imagine that any off-road shop is going to have. There's probably an imbalance because the Jeep market is so huge.
Yeah.
Or the Jeep aftermarket, I should say.
Yeah.
And it's only gotten bigger.
It's huge
recently.
Yeah.
I mean, in the 20-something years I've been in this sport, it's gone from like enthusiast type folks like us, right, to a much broader audience. And the majority of that is, and maybe this is me coloring it from the groups I've seen, because I am obviously more of the Jeep world than, the Bronco or the Toyota world. But it feels like a lot of that is newer Jeeps. Yeah. It's become so easy to just go buy a Rubicon and start wheeling, or buy a Rubicon and take it to a shop and say, "Give me all the cool stuff."
Bolt on.
Yeah. And then there's a guy that helps guide the Jamboree that I guide. He comes from, it's a northern state. I can't remember where he's from now. Anyway, he runs an off-road shop up there. And he and I were sitting around drinking a beer after, the first day of wheeling. And he's talking about one of his customers spent $23,000 on just axles. I think they were Dynatracs. Yeah. And I'm like, did you just say $23,000? And he's like, yeah. And I said, who spends that? And then
you would be shocked at what
gets better. This woman that's sitting like in between me and him, she goes, me. He's the customer. I'm like, oh my God. So the next day when she's coming in, and like the whole rest of the weekend, I went to her, $23,000. That was her name as far as I was concerned. The rest of the weekend.
You would be shocked at the money that people spend that we've done custom builds on. I'm like, oh, more than my Jeep.
23,000.
Yeah, there's a Jeep in the shop right now. God, it's the National Park Jeep.
The Willys wagon.
The Willys wagon. Thank you. Yep. When the guy's over $100,000 just into the Jeep.
So it's LS swapped, TJ frame swapped. I mean, it's a full swapped. Literally, they just took the Willys wagon body. It's a full build.
It's super nice. Oh, it's beautiful.
The LJ frame is super popular for those kind of swaps. I've seen a lot of. In fact, the guy that organizes our Jamboree has a. I want to say it's a completely custom tub, but it was based on one of the World War II era Willys bodies, but it's I think it's all stainless or aluminum. It might be aluminum. But he put it on an LJ frame.
Or the aqua tubs. I think it's.
I don't know. The guy, he's retired now. He used to run a construction business. I think he poured a ridiculous amount of money into this rig.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, just the amount. We've had several of them since I've been here, and I was like shocked at how much money.
Oh yeah, there's some serious, and that's the thing. There's some serious cash to be made in it. So like, and there's a lot of people out there that are willing to dump it because they just don't have the space,
the tools.
No offense to the ones that can't, but the talent.
Right.
It takes a lot of skill, or the time. There's a lot of people just like, I don't have the time, and I'd rather just put the money into it and have someone else do it.
I mean, there's no question. My build would be done a lot faster if I just threw 20 grand at it,
right?
And let someone or more and let someone build it.
Just be ready. Yeah.
And honestly, it's not like I couldn't do that. I'm probably going to end up spending 10 grand on it anyway.
Right.
I mean, I couldn't just snap my fingers and throw it at a shop, but my point, like some planning and some savings, like I could do that, but I don't want to. I want to build the damn thing.
And that's what we come back to all the time Riley and I always talk about is it's the sweat equity. You know,
Yeah.
it just doesn't seem personal anymore. It's like cool, and this is no dig on TNT at all, but it's like that's not my Jeep. Yes, it is my Jeep, right? I didn't build it though. You know, that's the one thing I'm stoked on my truck is, yes, mad respect to Bob and Mary for allowing me to do the work on my truck in the shop and allowing me to use the resources that we have to build the truck the way that I have built it, you know, at the shop. But everything has been my hands on the truck. And it's more, that's some of that is a slight bit of OCD and control freak, but it is more of like, I built that. You know, I put my hands in that. That's my welds. The only thing I didn't touch is the rock sliders. And at the time, fresh out of welding school, didn't have the time, didn't have a welder to build the rock sliders. Sold a ATV to get the money built up to get them, right? So gonna build them. That was the first thing I wanted to put on my truck when I started building my truck. So boom, there we go. And even
that's the first thing I put on every rig I'm going to take wheeling is rock sliders.
Rock sliders. So that's the one thing that I didn't personally weld up myself, or that I can't weld up, right? Don't know how to machine CVs, right? But the point being, the rear bumper, I welded up. It's a kit that I can get from a company. Welded up myself. The rear suspension, designed it and built it. Used parts we have from the shop. Or the skid plate, designed it, built it, right? Parts like that I've put either CAD work into, my own personal time, and welded myself. And that's no knock, no dig on any of the guys that are getting custom built Jeeps from us or anywhere else, or custom Toyotas or any of that stuff. If you can't do it and someone can, that's awesome. Do it. The passion.
Everyone,
there, sure.
Everyone has their way, you know.
Right.
And
right.
if you know, there was absolutely a time where I would do a modification on my Jeep, and I was worried that I had done it wrong.
Right.
If you're still there and you don't want to worry about it when you're on the trail, pay someone else, right?
Oh, yeah.
But personally, I use that as a learning experience. If I did something, I did it wrong, and it failed later, I learned something from that. If you don't want to be that guy, then don't be that guy.
Yeah. Well, the re-gear. When I did the re-gear on my truck, that was probably the most stressful things ever. Granted, you have a ton of money in re-gearing.
Yeah.
It's just one mistake can really ruin an entire, setup. And so there was a lot of like, okay, all my ducks in a row. Our automotive, one of our techs at the auto shop, I'm like, okay, this is what I got. How am I doing? Do I have everything? He looks good. Can you help me? I want to be hands-on, but
but you want to make sure it's done right.
I want it to be done right,
Yeah.
So situations like that where, you've got a lot of money invested into it. Yeah. A little guidance, a little, someone over the shoulder, making sure you're doing it right. Absolutely. But for the most part,
that's probably the next thing that I am most worried about with the axle builds, that I'm going to have to do lockers and gears.
Yeah.
And it's like, I really don't want to spend, I don't really want to pay someone else to do the axle or do the lockers and gears. Right. But I'm not sure if I want to do them myself either.
But Dana 60 re-gears sound like an absolute nightmare for shimming and re-gearing. It just, but do you got the money to send those off to someone else? Like that comes back to what it is how much do you want to dump into someone else doing it? How much time do you have to do it yourself? How much knowledge do you have right at this moment to do it correctly? In this, there's so many factors, right? But
it's another thing I've watched 100 times, and I think I know the basics, and I'm going to have to buy some tools I don't have.
Right.
But I'm still not sure.
I've been running the thing for a year, and I'm still not sure.
But you got to start somewhere though, and that's what I'm figuring. These are axles that aren't in the Jeep yet. I can take my time. I can make sure that it's as right as I'm going to get it. Be as careful as I can be, and then when the day they go in, it'll be long enough down the road that I'll have forgotten the mistakes that I made, and then hopefully it'll be fine.
What happened? Oh, I forgot oil.
So I'm sitting here. I'm like, I got to remember, I'm a host on this podcast. I'm just sitting here listening to you guys. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
feel
this
free to
is what-
speak
I
up,
know.
Tammy.
I'm like, wait a minute here.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
I know. I catch myself doing that because I just get so involved in conversation, just listening.
Just
to you guys
into
go-
it.
Yeah.
You gonna do some gears, Tammy?
No. I watch Nick do it all the time in the shop, and it is fascinating, and I'm learning a little here and there. But I just want to get my rusty bumpers off, and I'll be fine, and just keep my check engine light from going off. It's going off again.
Well, I mean, there's a good project for you, Tammy.
Yeah.
You work in a shop. You need new bumpers.
Yeah. Oh no, so when we moved from the old shop, we had these displays with parts on them, and we were tossing out a bunch of stuff, but Nick grabbed some of the stuff that has some JK bumpers on it. So they're not fabbed. They were like mistake bumpers. So
you've talked about those before.
So, but right now I'm happy where I'm at. My oil pressure sensor code keeps going off. Daniel and I are trying to figure out what's going on. It happened when we were in South Dakota. It just went off again Sunday morning. So we're thinking now maybe it's the oil housing adapter. So we'll see.
Never ends.
I know.
Yep.
You fix one thing and there's another thing.
Well,
so.
I mean, swapping an engine. I know you swapped like for like engines, but still, there's a lot. There's like so much. And under the hood of that JK, I mean, we've talked about this on the podcast before when I did the rocker, that lifter, whatever, in my wife's. Just getting to the freaking valve cover was a nightmare. All the things I had to take off, all the things that were in the way, and that's just one side. I don't know if I could keep track of everything to actually pull that motor out and put it back in.
I forgot what I was going to say to that now. Totally left my brain what I was going to say. Anyway.
So where I was going was, you need bumpers. You work at a shop. You're surrounded by welders and fabricators. Now's a great time to learn to weld, Tammy.
I need to go to the other shop. Oh, I got to go get some reels over there and maybe have them when there's a lull. Go over there and
shop.
Yeah.
Jake, you talk about being fresh out of welding school. I'm like 100% self-taught. You could probably weld circles around me.
Yeah, I mean, I see stars when I'm welding. That's how long we've been welding. It's honestly, it's a repetition. It's getting in there and just continuing to do it over and over and over. Trying not to pick up bad habits. Honestly, that's probably the biggest one. Finding someone who can watch the technique that knows what they're doing. So once you go hood down, you can't tell what you're doing. And you could be doing something that's really messing with the way that you're welding and have no idea. But recording yourself, filming the way that you body language, maybe film yourself from far away and watch how you hold the torch, or watch how you weld, and then go in and kind of watch, a way that's not going to blow up the camera, but watch how your arm's working. See what your torch angle is, because there's people that maybe it feels like they're good, but their gun's aimed this way and they're trying to run that way. You know what I mean? There's situations like that where you just can't tell if you're doing something wrong, but if it looks like right, your angles are right, just run about 6,000 passes. So when we went in school, you got a little 6x6 plate, and you just filled it up and filled it up and filled it up. And your classes were 5-hour classes. And you try to get that plate to be about 2.5, 3 inches thick. And when it was that thick, you threw it away and you did it again.
Did another one.
Oh, Lord.
And you just, that was the point. It's repetition. You run it and you run it and you run it.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. I haven't tried TIG yet. In fact, I only just upgraded to MIG. I was doing flux core for
flux core is tricky because it's so hot. You can't like MIG is awesome to learn because you can slow down. And that's the best example I can tell anybody at the beginning. Slow down. Just slow it down. You know, a lot of people want to run really fast. The settings on these newer machines are just telling you to pull the trigger and drag. You know, turn the settings down a little bit. You know, go to a little bit lower settings so you can slow down and focus on your weld. You know, holding it in, you know, whatever position that you're welding in, if it's flat, just get used to slowing down. You know, that's the best advice I can tell anybody. Tends to be that everyone wants to go way too fast.
Yeah.
When it comes to welding, but the best way is to kind of see, you know, do some recording, film yourself welding. Like I said, long distance, short up, and see the difference.
Having a YouTube channel, I've got plenty of footage of me welding.
And compare it to professionals, you know, of what they're saying. You know, seeing if that torch angle, you know, to where you can see the difference between your torch angle and settings. Like I said, my settings on my machine are nowhere close to what they recommend on the underside of the machine.
Yeah.
That typically all your machines tell you to run super fast, super hot. That's for turning and burning. And for the industry, and I've noticed this, the industry doesn't like these caterpillar looking welds where there's no motion, right? There's no steps. It doesn't look like, I hate to use the terminology, but dime stacking.
Yeah.
It's such a cliche term, but that's what a lot of people want to see. You guys got 2 more hours, we can get into this. But the point being, the metallurgy side of it, of like, you know, stepping out of your puddle and stepping back in, you can create cold laps, you can crack welds, yada yada yada. There's a whole lot to the welding side of it. But if you can keep the metal hot and stay in your puddles, but you can still create these laps, these stacks, you can make the weld look really good in a lower temperature and keep the heat into it and make it look nice, make it look pretty, maybe is a better way to put it, but still get good penetration instead of just fast wire speed, super high amps, and just have to run this thing like a marathon.
Because you want it to stay together. You don't want it just to look all fancy. And is that what?
And really, the big one is you want to put a lot of heat down into the material so that when you're melting this wire, that it's fusing deep into, but you don't want to put a ton of heat to where you're warping it. An axle is a prime example. You don't want to throw a ton of heat to that axle because that SOB is going to warp. So you want to get a lot of heat into that one area easily, but not, I don't want to say quickly because I'm going back on my words, but you don't want to go slow enough to where you're going to overheat it, but you want to get it quick enough where you're going to get fusion, but you want it to look good. So it's this balance of, I don't want to run fast enough to just have these ugly drags. I don't want to run cold enough to where I'm not going to fuse, but I don't want to run slow enough to where I'm putting too much heat. It's such a tricky situation that the best way to explain it is time and practice. Run you a ton of beads on a flat chunk of steel. Get used to the way that your machine runs. Get used to the way that you run to where you can dial that machine in and be ready to weld a fancy TNT customs truss on that Dana 60 and throw that Barnes truss away in the trash. But no, I mean, I got no problem with Barnes. Their stuff's quality, laser cut. I got no problem with their stuff. But
they were at the right price point, is why I ended up with Barnes.
And it's all laser cut stuff. I can't complain, you know.
It seems quality. The only thing that struck me as odd was how high it sits.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a 4-inch tall truss.
Yeah.
And like Artec, for example, hugs down onto the axle tube more. It seemed kind of weird that they chose to go that high.
It just, so this is my assumption on the way that Barnes does it, is they can get away with a smaller passenger side upper control arm, potentially, depending on where that driver side
that is true.
on the On the diff, probably the same mount.
Yeah,
If it's a
that's probably
universal
true.
mount, maybe not.
I don't have the control arm
Leverage.
mounts on there yet, obviously, but
Right.
but yeah, normally when you see the upper control arm mount, you got a tower that holds the
Huge.
thing up.
Yep. So
Yeah.
is ours. Ours is a pretty tall one. Maybe they're thinking the leverage isn't as bad. With a smaller mount on that side, take it out throughout the entire truss versus one tall mount.
Yeah. Yeah.
Depends. I mean, I think you're going to throw 16 different opinions at that and argue it till the day you die. I mean, I've seen ours never fail. We have failures on other things versus this. People have failures on theirs versus that. You'll get that opinion on anyone and everyone. So, but
yeah.
Either way, yeah, it comes down to practice on the welding side of it, and then grinders. Get you a grinder. Yep.
Grinder and paint, right?
Yep. Grinder and paint. Yep. Makes the welder you ain't. If
you I'll say that
can't find it.
I've only in the early days have I had any of my flux core welds fail. And like I said, I just recently upgraded, and my welds look 100% better now.
Yeah.
Just by switching to a tank.
Yeah.
So hopefully they end up just as strong. But yeah, I can't explain to you how I weld, but I know that I've been able to lay down some decent beads with the flux core stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know all the terminology and all the science behind it, but I know how to make things stick together.
Holy cow. Yeah, it's a lot. That's a whole nother, that's Pandora's box, honestly. That's a whole nother monster conversation to have.
We've got a technical institute just across town, one of the high school level career technical institutes, and I've thought for years about going over and taking some welding classes, but I just never got around to doing it.
It's worth it. I mean, I went back to welding school at a later age, and it taught me. I thought I knew how to weld, and not gonna lie, that was a humbling experience to go back to school and be like, oh.
Yeah,
I've been doing it wrong all these years.
I mean,
I didn't know what I thought I knew.
Dang. So I'm gonna sit down.
Sit down and learn something. That's why you're there, right?
Today. Okay, sorry. Kids help though too to kind of square you out and be like, I should probably learn something today now. But no, it is definitely in this industry, it's well worth knowing how to weld a little bit, or at least enough to get you off the trail or help you modify your vehicle if that's the direction you're going for.
It's not like you're putting up a handrail where it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
No.
And
on a cruise ship
most,
well, that there it might, but when you're welding stuff for your rig that you're beating up on the trails, you kind of got to do it right.
I want that to stay where it needs to be.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I tried a lot of the information I'd read about welding to cast. They're like, oh, you should do stick welding and you should use nickel rods. I'm like, all right, I've been flux core welding for years. I should be able to stick, right? No, I can't stick. I cannot stick.
So that's that, like, pat your head, rub your belly, like,
yeah.
Just because you're burning the rod down, so you're moving this way and down at the same time burning.
My God, I was able to do that. The trick was getting the damn thing to start. I couldn't get the damn thing to arc.
Is that yours?
Yeah, that's mine.
Yeah. I used to hear Nate's sometimes.
Oh yeah, down in the basement, you don't hear my kids as much.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that's a whole nother one, because then you have like the annealing process, the cooling, the heat treating, especially with the cast and the high nickel. That's a whole nother monster. It's awesome. There's a lot to be learned, with the metallurgy side of it. Stick rod's a monster. That's a whole other monster.
Yeah. I ended up heating it and doing it MIG. And I mean,
you can.
I don't exactly have a way to X-ray my welds or anything, but I don't see any cracks. They seem solid.
Really, it comes down to preheat, run your beads and then wrap it.
Yep.
You want to wrap
exactly what I did.
Yep, and then just let the thing cool down. That's where the annealing process comes in, of just
letting
things come down.
Oh, here's I wrapped it in my welding blanket, and then I have a denim jacket I wear to keep myself from getting burnt while welding. I wrap that around it, and yeah,
it'll stay. It ain't going nowhere. And if it doesn't, then you know what you got to do again, and just lay on a couple more of the old Caddy pillars on there.
Yeah.
Call her good. Yeah. That's the name of the game.
Well, we are over an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I will say that we definitely don't want to hit the 2-hour mark because then we have issues with StreamYard.
Oh, really?
I shouldn't say issues. There's some post-processing stuff that it won't let us do if it's over 2 hours. So we found that out when we talked to Dirt Lifestyle, I think it was. We went on forever with him because he's just like this wealth of everything. We like went on about YouTube and stuff for hours.
Yeah, people are like, isn't this supposed to be an off-road podcast, not a how-to YouTube?
Yeah. So, at any rate,
where can people find your podcast?
So the podcast, anywhere you get podcasts. So our main source is Spotify. That tends to be where everyone's finding us, but Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Cast, anywhere. Honestly, it distributes everywhere. But
I'm pretty sure Google is shutting down their podcasting thing.
Are they
again? I don't know. It seems like nothing Google owns ever lasts. So yeah. I keep getting emails from them that the shows I have listed on Google Podcasts, I better move them. Well, I don't want to move. I don't care.
Sure.
Just shut your crap down.
Go to Apple or Spotify, guys. It's the easiest.
And is it just way. Toyota Garage or
it's just Toyota Garage Podcast.
Okay, Toyota Garage Podcast.
I'll say earlier today I found you guys on Spotify super easily.
Yep. Typically, and it's hard to say whether I've completely destroyed my search, but typically Toyota on Spotify, we're one of the first ones that comes up.
Oh, awesome.
Apple Podcasts is about the same way. You go Toyota, and we're one of the first podcasts that comes up. Not a bragging way, but just Toyota Garage, and we're usually coming up pretty quick. You've got a photo of Riley and my truck with the Moab background scene, so it's really hard to not hard to miss the podcast. But anywhere you get it, honestly, a quick Google search, it'll bring up anywhere that you can find it. Social media is the same thing. It's Toyota Garage or at Toyota Garage Podcast on Instagram. We're not on Facebook. We're not doing the website. It's Instagram's about really the main one is where we're at. It's kind of where we stay to. We're not really branching off to any of the other TikToks.
It's a lot of work. It is.
I got work just outside the door right now. I got too much work anyway.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
So is Riley going to be upset that we didn't invite him on?
No, Riley got to go to the Land Cruiser Heritage Museum. Riley can pound sand. Love you, buddy. No, it's the logistics of trying to get all of us together. I can't imagine how hard that'd be. But
does he live here in Cheyenne?
He's actually out in like the St. George area.
Oh, okay.
So he's kind of in I think it's the Cedar City. Technically, St. George is a better way.
Because when you said you sat around the garage and did your first podcast,
used to. Yeah. He used to live up here, like in Fort Collins. He was in Fort Collins. So when we first started, and then he went off to tech school and got his diesel tech degree, associates. Well, I'm not sure exactly what.
Right.
But, and then he kind of tracked down jobs throughout Colorado, ended up out in Utah, and most recently was out in the St. George, Cedar City area.
That's where Sand Hollow is, right?
Yep. Correct.
St. George, Hurricane.
We know some other Jeep podcasters that live out that way too.
Yeah. Gary is it Gary and Gary? One of the
just
Garys,
the one. Just the one Gary, not the other Gary.
What's their podcast again? I forget.
The
Jeep Cast. The Jeep Cast. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've heard of them. Yeah.
And both their names are Gary.
Yeah.
Gary and Gary. So
they wanted to keep it simple, so you couldn't forget their name. So they just have two hosts named the same thing.
Yeah, there you go.
They should have called it the Gary Cast. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm all out of beer.
There you go.
Well, Jake, thank you so much.
Absolutely,
We're gonna have to have you on again and talk a little bit more about off-roading in a Toyota
Yeah.
and overlanding
Yeah,
in
maybe-
a Toyota.
Maybe I'll have a different Dana 60 behind me then.
Yeah.
I'll be working on the other axle.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah,
There
we
you
could
go.
get a
Weird.
little bit more into the differences, what it's like to wheel a Toyota and
Wheel
stuff.
an
So
IFS versus a solid axle.
Yeah.
It's always a great conversation.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, maybe we'll do that coming up here shortly. So
Yeah. Let me know.
And
yep,
you know, we could always use some expertise outside of the Jeep world if you
Yeah.
ever need an extra podcast to guest co-host on.
yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah. We would love
Definitely.
we'd love to have you. All right. Well, I'll see you tomorrow at work.
Yep.
Nate, should we
Appreciate it, guys.
should we just say goodnight now?
Yeah, well, this has been
Yeah.
fun, folks. Remember, you can find us on the socials, really wherever you want to find us. Just
Yep.
go to offroadinsiders.com. You can get links to us from there. If this is the first night we're trying this, I'm simultaneously broadcasting to my channel and the Off-Road Insiders YouTube channel. If you're watching on SWB Crawler, feel free to go subscribe to the Off-Road Insiders. That's the best place to find our content. I don't know if I'm going to continue doing it on my channel or not. It's kind of an experiment. So if you are, go subscribe over there. And that's it. As I mentioned, I'm Nate. You can find me at swbcrawler.com. Tammy, where can folks find you?
At jeepmama.com. And Jake's at the Toyota Garage podcast.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
We'll see you
thank
guys.
everybody for watching
Yeah.
tonight. And we'll catch you next time.